All right, I wanted to talk about a really important specific concept, FOMOing into the market. Now, I'm sitting here in a business trip in Colombia, and I want to mention that my wife and I are about to close on a multi-million-dollar property. We're worth over $5 million, and I'm sitting here making investments, trying to dollar cost average into specific areas, looking at specific stocks, and I'm seeing AMD go to the moon. I literally just made a video. I had posted it up on YouTube and I let it sit there. I haven't made it live yet. And while I'm doing this, I see that the price of AMD had gone from 144 yesterday to 155. And this is all happening while the Dow Jones is having one of its worst days in the last like 4 or 5 weeks. Not that it's been a bad day, but they're actually having, the Dow entirely is having a down day. And it reminds me of the same thought process or the same concept even with Bitcoin right now. A lot of people are freaking out about Bitcoin and thinking through what's going to happen with Bitcoin. Should I come in now or should I not? Are we at the forefront of Bitcoin or would it be a waste? And I want to recognize one of the things that Tom Lee had even recently had stated is that currently, right now, in this current environment, it's about 1996 as the onset of internet is coming, meaning by the years 98, 99, the stock market had exploded. And yes, there was a bubble, but even looking at where the bubble happened and where we went back to on the correction, we start to think through all of these different things. And when I hear someone like Tom Lee say these things, I start to think about Bitcoin and think about where is it going to be in 2 years or in 4 years or in 5 years. And this brings me back to AMD for a specific reason, is that I have invested quite a bit of money into it. I have a lot of deep-rooted belief that this thing is going to go, and there's a couple different reasons. And some of that has to do with we still have not reached all-time highs on this stock. Last year, this stock was higher. Okay, so we still have not even achieved all-time highs. And when we start to look at things like market cap that I brought up in the other video, we can start to recognize like, wow, holy crap, even with 2 or 3 other players, there's going to be a lot of different factors that can go into some things. Now, that can go into some serious growth. Now, when I start to think about AMD, should I buy more? I'm seeing this happen. I'm like, it's going to the moon. It's at 155. Well, I can't purchase anymore because now if I buy now, what's going to end up happening is it's going to crash back down. That might happen. But the thing is, what if this thing goes to 250? What if this thing goes to 300? And what if we're looking in 5 years and it's at 350, 400 bucks in 5 years, it's 2030, and you didn't want to buy when it was sitting at 155. Okay, so one thing I wanted to bring up, I've got some of these numbers up right now, is that AMD annual revenue for 2023 was $22.68 billion. This is a 3.9% decline from 2022. AMD annual revenue for 2024 was $25.78 billion. That was a 13.69% increase from 2023. So think about this, is that in 2022, okay, they really had a positive increase from 2021. And then in 2023, there was a decline. But this was when we could start to look at some of their financials and start to look at different aspects. This is where they were really starting to set up some of the infrastructure around releasing MI355X, building the infrastructure out so that they could eventually release these chips that are just going to be absolutely slaughtering some of their competitors. Now, when we look at AMD annual revenue for 2024, it was $25.785 billion. That's 13.69% increase. I want to go over right here. AMD revenue for 12 months ending in March 31st, 2025 was $27.75 billion. That's a 21.71% increase year over year. So we went 13.69 to 21.71% increase. And as of right now, AMD revenue for the quarter ending in March, the first quarter, $7.438 billion year over year was a 35.9% increase. And so we're starting to see, we've seen for 3 years now, an increase in the acceleration of growth, meaning it went from 13.69 to 21.71% to theoretically 35.9%. And we really might see this by the end of the year be a 35, 37% increase. That might be a little aggressive, but what does that mean? What that ends up meaning is I'm looking at some of the financials as well, where we start to see a lot of this comes back to, okay, this is a stock that real retail investors, someone like you and I, are just, we're starting to get into now. Around 150 is now everything's starting to pop off. There's a lot of belief, there's a lot of recognition. You're starting to see a lot of people talking about what AMD is doing. You're starting to see some of the other big factors is that you've seen other companies, OpenAI, buying into AMD and believing in everything that Lisa Su is doing, to the point where OpenAI's CEO went to their event recently, about a month ago, and actually spoke on the prowess and the performance of their MI355s, on the MI400s, and what they're going to be using the chips for. And what's happening right now is you're slowly starting to see analysts change their tune and actually go in favor, and then change their next forecast of where this stock price is actually going to get to. And one of the things that I think is interesting is that I'm looking on tip ranks right now, and I'm going, okay, summary: AMD exhibits strong financial health with robust revenue growth. Robust revenue growth, a healthy gross profit, strong cash flow. Income statement, 92 on the grade, right? Balance sheet, 88 on the very positive. Cash flow, very positive. And you go through this, and you're looking at every single factor, every single metric, and you're going, wow, these guys are really, they're really, really starting to grow. On a downside, we might see this at like the tip ranks. AMD 12 months stock forecast has this as a downside is like 105. Okay, average 135. Right now, high 200, and that's a 12-month forecast, putting out 12 months from today. And I think that's really, really low. But going back to the analysts, you heard what I just said about how all of those things on the financials, they're like an 88 to a 92. And it's still, from the AMD analyst rankings, a moderate buy based off of 35 ratings. 25 are a buy, 10 are a hold. So the analysts still are not coming in on this freaking project. They're still not coming in on this stock. They're still looking at this as theoretically having a downside. They're still looking at this as, this is a little bit too risky for us to roll into. This is a little bit, and what's going to end up happening is that you're going to see, because this is going to keep going, right? This is going to go 160, 165, 170, and we're going to see 200 probably in the fall. Okay, we're in middle of July. I wouldn't be surprised if it's the middle of September, early October, and we're going to start to see where we're at is around 200. And the thing that's crazy then is that when the stock analysts start to roll in, and when the stock analysts start to purchase, and they start to have more confidence in it, that's when this thing's going to really start to catch on, and really going to start to, it's going to be rocket fuel for the stock. And then we're going to be sitting here, and then the following 3 or 4 months, it's going to hold steady, and then they're going to release more projects, their MI400 series is going to start to leak out and come out, and that's when things are really, really going to take off. So I think it's important that, yes, when there's an issue, like right now, Bitcoin's at 118, 120, right? AMD is starting to take off. It's still early. Tom Lee's even talking about Bitcoin. It's still early. Think about 5 years from now. Think about where this thing's going to be. And we talked about this in the market cap for NVIDIA is $4 trillion. AMD's at $250 billion, around $250 billion market cap. This thing goes to $1 trillion, it's going to take off. So I hope that helps somebody think through their own personal FOMO. That's something that I've dealt with myself. But I think it's important that as long as you're going in and you're making some of your analysis and you're looking at some of the different factors, it eases your brain and it helps you make better decisions. I hope this helps somebody out there. Until next time, peace.